Ask a room full of people if cannabis should be legalized, and you'll get a shouting match. But here in 2026, that yes or no debate misses what actually happened. As the map on screen lights up, you're looking at three very different policy experiments run on the same plant. In this episode, we're opening three case files: North America's for-profit retail markets, Germany's tightly regulated non-profit clubs, and Thailand's boom, followed by a hard pivot back toward medical-only access. So let's throw out the idea that legalization is one thing. It's a spectrum of rulebooks, and each rulebook builds a different reality. The split screen here is the point. Store shelves, membership paperwork, and enforcement tape aren't aesthetics. They're policy. Experiment 1 is the commercial model, Canada and many US states. Think branded products, licensed storefronts, and layered taxes. The pitch is simple. Pull consumers into a regulated market and shrink the illegal one. Experiment 2 is the non-commercial model, Germany's Cannabis Act, in force since April 1, 2024. No chain dispensaries. Adults can grow at home, and since July 1, 2024, they can get legal supply through non-profit cultivation associations, what people call cannabis clubs. If the on-screen form looks boring, that's the design. Access without a retail marketing machine. Experiment 3 is the rollback, Thailand. The country removed cannabis from the narcotics list on June 9, 2022, and retail exploded into the open. Then, in June 2025, Thailand tightened control of cannabis flower by treating it as a controlled herb and requiring prescriptions, pushing the system back toward medical access and away from walk-in recreational sales. Same plant, three systems, three sets of incentives, and three very different outcomes. Let's open the case files.
Let's start with the commercial giant model, the one most people picture when they hear legalization. Licensed, for-profit businesses grow and sell cannabis, more like alcohol than a homegrown workaround. And yeah, like that sidewalk sign on screen, marketing shows up fast.
So we're talking dispensaries, branding, and taxes. Lots of taxes.
Exactly. And the money is real. Since the first adult use markets opened in 2014, states have collected more than $24.7 billion in adult use cannabis tax revenue. In 2024 alone, it was over $4.4 billion.
That sounds like a win for state treasuries. But the big promise was always about killing the black market. Did that actually happen?
In Canada, it's closer to yes. Federal legalization let them build a national framework, and in Health Canada's 2024 survey, 72% of people who used cannabis reported getting it from legal sources. In the US, it's messier because it's state by state under a federal ban. In places like California, a large illicit market has persisted, often blamed on a mix of high taxes, compliance costs, and uneven local licensing that keeps legal prices up.
I have to interrupt here. We can't just look at tax dollars. When you turn a drug into a for-profit industry, the incentive is to sell more, and the products don't stay the same. This isn't the grass from the 60s. Commercial markets helped normalize high-potency concentrates, wax, shatter, oils, that commonly test in the 60 to 90% THC range.
90%? That sounds more like a pharmaceutical than a plant.
It can be industrial strength. Canada has strict packaging rules, but the commercial pressure is constant, and marketing doesn't always look like a billboard. Social platforms make enforcement and age-gating hard.
The trade-off is regulation can improve product safety. Legal products are generally tested for things like contaminants and potency, imperfectly, but with far more oversight than street supply.
That's true, but we also traded one risk for another. One of the clearest signals is kids getting into edibles. Canadian research found pediatric hospitalizations for unintentional cannabis poisonings rose much more in provinces that allowed commercial edible sales.
It seems like packaging can only do so much if the product looks like candy. What about the US federal situation? I keep hearing about rescheduling.
It's in motion, but it's not done. The Justice Department proposed moving marijuana from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 in May 2024. But until a final rule is published, it remains Schedule 1, and it's not federal legalization either way.
And meanwhile, we have this hemp loophole, right?
Exactly. And that convenience store display on screen is the vibe. Hemp-derived intoxicants like Delta-8 have been sold outside licensed dispensaries under a patchwork of rules that varies a lot by state and city.
That's the irony. The commercial giant has testing rules, labeling rules, and enforcement mechanisms. The loophole market has been far more uneven, sometimes effectively regulated, sometimes barely.
So the North American experiment shows you can raise revenue and pull a lot of people into legal stores. But you also create a powerful industry that keeps pushing potency and product design. Next, let's look at Germany's attempt to take profit out of the equation. If North America is the commercial giant, the rest of the world is running very different experiments. On the map, you can see two of them light up in completely opposite ways. Germany built a members-only maze. Thailand built a freeway, then hit the brakes.
Let's start with Germany. Their Cannabis Act took effect on April 1, 2024. Adults can possess limited amounts and grow at home. But they deliberately avoided a commercial dispensary model, no storefront retail rollout, and a hard line against advertising.
Instead, Germany's adult use supply is built around cultivation associations, often called social clubs. Not a shop you walk into, more like a co-op. Members pool resources, grow collectively, and distribute within strict limits.
And the limits are tight. Clubs cap out at 500 members. Adults can carry 25 grams in public and keep 50 grams at home, and clubs can only distribute controlled monthly amounts to members. The product isn't the hard part, the compliance is.
Because in Germany, legalization runs through bureaucracy. Permits are issued state by state, and the pace is uneven. Some places move, others don't. By spring 2025, approvals existed nationally, but there were also states where not a single club had been cleared yet.
From a public health lens, that friction is partly the point. Germany bans cannabis advertising and sponsorship. The goal isn't to create new demand, it's to pull existing use into a controlled, lower hype lane.
So what are we seeing?
The honest answer is, it's early. Germany built a staged evaluation into the law, starting about 18 months after April 2024, with broader check-ins after that, so the official verdict is still being written. For now, boring is the strategy. Fewer incentives, more guardrails, and slow, measurable change.
Now, the opposite. Thailand, 2022. Cannabis was removed from the narcotics list, and the rulebook didn't keep up.
It turned into a gold rush. Within a couple of years, roughly 18,000 cannabis businesses had popped up, especially in tourist zones. That neon storefront you're looking at isn't an outlier. It's the whole mood of the boom.
And speed creates backlash. With unclear guardrails, concerns piled up, youth access, public nuisance, uneven enforcement. And then politics shifted.
Which brings us to late June 2025. Thailand's health ministry reclassified cannabis flower as a controlled herb and on paper moved sales back behind a medical prescription.
That's a hard pivot. Walk-in recreational sales effectively end when you require a prescription for flower, and the penalties for illegal sales can include up to a year in jail and a fine. It's whiplash. Signs come down, shops consolidate, and the market snaps toward medical only.
So here's the contrast. Look at the balance graphic on screen. Germany shows how a tight state-by-state licensing system can slow legal access and risk leaving room for the illicit market. Thailand shows how a fast, loosely governed rollout can trigger backlash and a sharp regulatory reversal.
Exactly. Too tight, and the legal channel can't compete. Too loose, and you lose public trust. The middle is clear rules, real enforcement, and a market design that doesn't advertise its way into higher use.
And that brings us to the final question. We've seen the money, the models, and the mistakes. But what does the data say about harms? Let's get to the verdict.
We've looked at 3 real-world experiments. So here's the big takeaway. Legalization did not make teen cannabis use skyrocket. In the US, the CDC's National Youth Risk Behavior Survey Trend Report shows 17% of high school students reported current, past 30-day marijuana use in 2023, down from 23% in 2013. And in Canada, Health Canada's Canadian Cannabis Survey shows youth 16 to 19 past year use has moved around over time, but didn't show a steady post-legalization surge. It was 41% in 2024 versus 43% in 2023.
That's honestly surprising, given how visible cannabis is now. But what about the other fear, the idea that legalization brings a wave of crime?
That's where the data gets more nuanced. You have to separate crime into 2 buckets. First, enforcement. When possession is legal, possession arrests drop, which means fewer low-level cases moving through police time, courts, and jails. Second, serious crime. For violent and property crime, a multi-group time series study of Colorado and Washington found minimal to no statistically significant long-term effects after legalization and the start of retail sales.
And the black market, did the legal shops actually put the dealers out of business?
It depends on the model. In Canada, legal access is widespread, and in the latest survey, 72% of past-year consumers said their usual source was a legal store or legal website. But if legal options are pricey, inconvenient, or scarce, the other market doesn't disappear. It hangs on through friends, informal networks, and illegal sellers.
And we can't ignore the harms that did shift. We're not seeing a teen use explosion, but we are seeing sharper concerns around high-potency products and road safety. In Canada, 18% of past-year cannabis consumers reported driving within 2 hours of smoking, vaping, or within 4 hours of ingesting at least once. And some extracts can reach up to 90% THC. And higher THC products, especially with frequent use, are linked to a higher risk of adverse mental health effects.
So if we zoom out, it sounds like the question isn't yes or no to legalization. It's how you build the rules.
Exactly. Policy design determines outcomes. On screen are 5 levers governments can pull. Who can sell and where? Taxes and pricing, marketing restrictions, product standards and THC limits, and public safety enforcement. Legalization can work, but only if you regulate it like a public health product, not a toaster.
Data over dogma. That's a solid place to leave it. Thank you both for this deep dive. And thank you for listening. If you want the sources for today's data, check the description. We'll see you in the next experiment.